Managerial economics and consumer demand. This is what we'll be talking. So please listen to this video, watch it very carefully. If you do not understand, requesting all the viewers to re-watch it time and again. This is a very important and it involves a certain amount of logic and mathematics calculation out there. So what is a demand curve? If you will have understood by now, demand curve cannot be observed directly, but probably we can always estimate certain things. Estimation involves model specification, essential. Actual estimation using econometric tools. Remember, we have given you a certain example where economics is to be predicted in terms of a perfect model. Everything we need to study one factor, remaining other factors all remaining constant. But is that possible in realistic scenario? Probably not. Everything changes. Even the factor that we are studying and the associated factors, everything is changing in a random fashion. Interpretation of the result and possible modification of the empirical model thereby. A basic understanding of regression analysis is needed to perform these type of estimate. This course, however, is not an econometric courses altogether. We are looking as the managerial economics and the decision thereof. There are software packages, let's say e-views for that matter. Factor affecting demand. Let us assume the following demand function. The factors of production that we are trying to produce, it's a function of price, it's a function of quality, it's a function of advertisement expenses, it's the function of the average income of the consumer, it's a function of the time of the day or the season in the year. There are a number of factors that has been associated with the quantities. So how do we obtain the demand fraction? Management cannot control all the factors, but probably can control some of them, whilst others absolutely are beyond. Factors affecting demand, controllable factors, that is price to a degree, product characteristic to a certain degree, marketing expenses, promotion, advertising, place of sale, everything can be controlled because this is in the hand of the organization. Uncontrollable factors, consumer income, consumer preferences, demographic, government policies, example taxation and other means to discourage tobacco and alcohol product. We are talking about competitive factors. We are talking about macroeconomic factors as in the economic cycle is concerned. We understand the law of demand, which moves around it from price point one to price point two. The moment from price point one, if you reduce it to price point two, the demand increases. The quantity consumption increases from Q1 to Q2. So this is what we needs to be done. The law of demand states that the quantity demand is inversely related to the selling price. You increase the price point, the quantity different changes, reduces altogether. It's inversely related to one another. This means that the demand curve is downward sloping and can be formalized as following. That is, quantity of demand is a function of and can be formalized as follows: as a function of price, as a function of availability of land. So the DDX, the differentiation function, should be the demand of the quantity and the demand of the price divided by demand of the price should not be less than zero. So there are other factors affecting the demands of the goods and services. The income effect, which states that the demand rises as a real purchasing power increases. The normal goods, while the inferior goods, the opposite is also true. For instance, consumption of potato declines with a higher income as individual shifts to substitutes such as rice, perhaps. Absolutely. Instead of consuming potatoes, we start shifting to rices. Instead of having rices, we might start shifting to wheats, perhaps. That substitution effect, which means that consumers will shift to a less expensive alternative. Although similar products and prices will rise. Often, income and substitution effect are complementary to one another. The so-called Marshallian demand function states that the demand of the good is a function of prices and income. For instance, the quantity of one particular demand is a function of certain prices, certain other factors that needs to be there. Let's say the disposal income of the consumer. Let us say availability of resources, the raw material at a cheap rate or at a steep rate, whatever you like to look around it. This will affect the quantity of demand. An important property of an ordinary demand function is that they are homogeneous, of a degree zero in income and prices. If income and all prices changes by same proportion, the demand remains unchanged per se. Market demand curve is an horizontal summation. And how do we come across with it? This is the horizontal curve that we are looking into it. Can we increase the demand? The price remains the same. Can we increase the demand of the quantities? The price related to the goods affects the demand, and this can be complemented by, or should I say, substituted by. Now, this is how we are trying to push around it. So price remain more or less fixed. Can we push on the demand, or probably that is what the point is all about. Price expectations are very important. If we expect to see a lower price in future, the demand of the product will be lower today. Why? Because in future anticipation we'll purchase it. We'll withhold our purchases as of today, as of now, as consumption is postponed until a further date. Example, sales. Market demand is also affected by the number of people consuming the product. An increase in population raises the demand for goods and services. Ceteris paribus, as in when on basis, ceteris paribus, it is a free on go. It is changing. Market is changing every now and then. It is dynamic. Shift in taste would influence the demand for goods unrelated to other factors. Example, because of the healthy lifestyle, people are less interested in consuming products that contain a lot of fat, a lot of salt, a lot of sugar, a lot of calories per se. What are we going around it? I'm just giving you an example. See, the income and the nominal good, the change is on a positive side. The demand shift on the right hand side. For the inferior good, the change is on the negative side. The demand shift on the left side. So demand is decreasing. Taste and preferences, depending upon the taste, whether it goes up or goes down, you will look whether demand is increasing or shift decreasing. Similarly for price, similarly price of substitutes, similarly for price for complements, price expectation and population that we go around here. This is what we need to keep in our mind. Using this information, can we write a formula about a demand curve? The quantity of demand is a function, or let's say a function of one, probably the price of one plus the major constant factor that goes around it. So where Z is a factor of a lot many affairs that needs to be come around. It's a function of one, two, three, and so on and so forth. So you might be saying demand is availability of the seasonal fruits, seasonal vegetables, and plus the constant factor. The constant factor is might be availability in the fleece market, in the shopping complex, in a promotion demand, if it is in promotional mode or not. Is it complementary with the marketing activities? It has been packaged rightly. It has been charged rightly. Is the quantity being available as desired? So there are a hell lot of things. So changes in P will result in the movement of the curve. Similarly, changes in the component of Z or Z will also result in the shift of the demand curve, right, either to the right side or to the left side per se. Example, the demand of a good is expressed as 10 minus 5 the price times of X plus 0.001 into N plus 10 times P per se. Now, how are we looking into it? The price is the competing brand for the product X. Let's say a smartphone from one of the premier companies, or the other being the Android smartphone. Then comes and interpret the parameter metrics altogether. Now we need to understand the demand of the product X given the price of X is, let's say, $2. The income is approximately $20,000 and the price of Y is approximately $2.5. Now, if the income rises to $30,000, how much will be the influence of the consumption of X is what we are trying to identify. So this is a $20,000 income. Mind you, this is an annual income. The price is only $2, and the other price, the substitute price is of $2.5. If the income increases by 50%, remember 50% from 20,000 to a whooping 30,000, will it impact the prices of X, which has been priced at $2? So normal versus inferior good, demand increases or decreases with income. Substitute versus complement, luxury good versus necessary item, income versus elasticity, ordinary goods versus giffen goods, demand decreases, increases with a higher price. Our equity share a giffen good. We seem to buy them at a higher price and sell them at a lower price. Why so? That is what Warren Buffett would be telling us to us. Market demand versus firm demand curve. Managers are more interested in demand curve for the company's output than that of the individual. For a monopolistic, that is a single firm controlling the whole market, firm demands is identical to the market demand curve. In most cases, the firm supplies only a small portion of the market, and thus its demand curve is not identical to the market demand curve. Because of this, the pricing decision of its competitors affects the demand of the products and pricing. There can be a price leaders estimates the markets per se. So price elasticity of the demand. Now this is where we need to understand there is a elasticity of the price which we need to shift it rightwards so that demand increases. The price elasticity, we need to tinker with the prices so that more quantities can be sold. So how to measure this sensitivity of demand and the changes in the price of product? That is what elasticity is all about it. Slope of the demand function is Q plus B0 plus B1 into prices where B1 is more than 0. Then the slope would be delta Q by D, the quantity of demand, and divided by delta price, the slope as the case might be. Or delta X and delta S is the difference between the new quantities minus the old quantities, X2 minus X1. The slope is invariant with respect to price if demand curve is linear. But the same change in absolute price is different given the starting point, that is in percentile pages, in the percentage point that we are looking into it. So understand that delta x is all about the differences between the higher changes and the earlier changes product, or the delta x2 minus delta x1. Price elasticity of demand overcomes the problem with slope measures. It is defined as what is the elasticity of price is the percentage delta q demand of delta q product, sorry, demand of the product quantity by the percentage change in price, delta price. It is always negative. Remember, this is what the plasticity would be all about it. Different price elasticity. When EP is more than one, the demand is perfectly elastic. But EP is infinite, probably the demand is perfectly elastic. But when EP is less, elasticity of price is less than one, the demand is inelastic. Whether you lessened out or whether it is not down, there will be a steady demand which goes on and on. Alternative measures for price elasticity, midpoint formula, which overcomes the formula with the starting point, base value in calculating the percentage. It uses the midpoint between start and the end price per se. Let us talk about the price elasticity of demand. Price point elasticity of demand and how it has been calculated at a single point along the demand curve. It is the first derivative slope of the demand function as the case might be. Defined as what elasticity of price? We are talking about differentiations of the quantity demanded and the prices multiplied by the price and the quantity demanded all together. This is what we are going to go. This is the delta change in the quantity demand, delta change in the price multiplied by the price divided by the quantity demand. Example, QD is 5 minus 2.25 times price and P1 is equal to 2. So P2 will be 4. So what is the elasticity of E, or the elasticity at each price point? Below we have some data for you to understand the income, the price points on of elasticity of good categories in US and how to interpret those things. So price elasticity is given as far as for the food, what happens is minus 0.21. Income elasticity is 0.28. Medical services 0.22, negative 0.22, it's 0.22 directly. The rental is minus or negative 0.18. Income elasticity is 1. See, this is perfectly. You need to stay a roof over your head no matter what. Owners occupied negative 1.2, owners occupied 1.2. Absolutely inelastic altogether. Electricity might go changes. Now this is price elasticity negative 1.14. The price elasticity is 0.64. It is absolutely, people are consuming less electricity. Similarly for automobile, negative of 1.2 is approximately more of 3 out here. So we are looking at a higher price point, if I may say so. People are moving around it no matter what the prices are all about it. It is perfectly elastic out there. Beer 0.26, 0.38. negative for wine 0.88, it's 0.97. People are consuming beers no matter what their incomes are. It's the part of the lifestyle and so on and so forth. Now, what I'm trying to hammer down is the price elasticity of the demand is more important for predicting how the firm revenue performance is influences by the changes in the price. Let us assume the price of a product falls by approximately 10%. Does the demand remain change? Or there would be a fall by 10%. But the demand will not remain unchanged, and hence the some price decline is recaptured through the increase in demand of the firm's product. Why? Because the price falls down and people would flock up to purchase those rights. In particular, if demand is elastic, which is perfectly more than one, then revenue will rise if the unit price falls. So more revenue need not mean more profit, but probably that is how you are looking into is example being anything that goes about the point of equilibrium. Beyond this point, it is excess supply that we are going around it. Below this point, we have less of a supply and more of a demand. That's an excess demand. This is the point of equilibrium that comes around it for interaction. So we need to understand what is my point that we need to hammer down. Market equilibrium is defined as a point where the supply and demand goods are equal. When the price is below its equilibrium point, will be an excess demand. When the price is bid up, as long as the excess demand situation persists. This is actually opposite and true for the price that is higher than the equilibrium point. Excess supply leads to unsold goods, excess inventory in the market, and as a result, producer will lower the prices in an effort to increase sell or to push or get rid of their inventories. Example, QD 25 minus 3P and QS, the demand quantity, mind you, is 10 plus 2P. Find the price of the quantity of the equilibrium thereby. How to go about it? QD is equal to QS. 25 minus 3P is equal to 10 plus 2P. So what should be the price that goes around it? So analyzing shift in demand or supply curves, special situation, what are we looking out here? Price floor, minimum prices, price ceilings, maximum prices lead to an excess supply and demand. For instance, gasoline prices, minimum wages, the impact of taxes on supply and demand as the case might be. What are we trying to do? We are trying to push all together. This is my supply demand curve. Now the new demand curve is 2. What are we looking into it? This is my supply curve. If the demand curve increases, so my quantity increases and the price point increases. Why? Because there's an increase in demand. We can adjust the short term and a long term adjustment. In the short term, adjustment take place along with the supply demand curve, whereas we are trying to increase the demand. This is my new demand and this is my next new point of equilibrium at a different price point altogether. Because why? The demand has increased. But what happens in the long run? Existing seller, what happened? This was my selling point. This is my supply point. Now we have a different supply point in excess. We are having excess supply point. What happens out here? Now this was my supply point. We have the price point out here. Right? Yes or no? Obviously, yes. This is my first price point, and my new supply point. The price point remains the same. The number of quantities increases. Long run adjustment are represented at the shift of given supply and demand. That is what we are trying to go around it. So this is how we are looking about it. With this, I come to an end of this video. Thank you for watching the same.